Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you are excited about something going on in your life because that is how I think I get through an ever incensing, encroaching sense of, oh God, as we go into another presidential election year where I think the choice is really, really obvious. And one choice we made before, and it was horrible for the entire world, literally the entire world, as a result of a horrible choice that a lot of people that I share a nationality with made. So that's where we are at right now. But I am especially excited. I have started playing music with a band again. We are writing a lot of original songs. The energy in the room is very exciting and positive. It makes me joyful, which is a great feeling to have. And I cling to those moments. That is something we talk about a lot on the show, the kind of yin and yang between good times and bad times. And I'm very much looking forward to sharing more music and to be back on stage in front of people again very soon. I can't wait for that. And I'm especially excited to share today's episode with you. My guest on the show today is a great young comic named Jake Otero. Jake is from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I came to know Jake based on a recommendation from my friend Sarah Kennedy, one of the owners of the Dry Heat Comedy Club in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Jake came highly recommended from Sarah, and we had a really excellent conversation. Jake has a lot of similar interests to me in terms of music. So there's a lot of great music talk about various shows we've been to and want to go to. And not only that, but we also what I'm calling the documentation of a burgeoning scene. Albuquerque, New Mexico is on the map, I think, to the United States as a whole and to the world at larger because of Breaking Bad. So we talk a lot about the sort of change that show made to the vibe of the city, as well as a city with a very hungry and excited and passionate scene of stand-up comics, as well as a comic-going audience that I likened to other burgeoning scenes that I like to read about, be it the punk rock scene, folk scene of the 80s, like the hipster movement. All of these are New York-based. The 80s metal, hair metal scene in Los Angeles in the 80s. Austin, Texas, but the Austin, Texas of Slacker, not the tech Austin, Texas. It's very cool to and I'll say this: talking to Jake reminded me of my own youthful enthusiasm for stand-up comedy. Something that I think the pandemic and sort of the comedians arguing, particularly online, has kind of made it easy to forget. But talking to Jake reminded me of like going to my first couple shows and just like really being passionate to get on stage as much as possible. And Jake is a very funny guy, and I very much enjoyed talking to him, and I think you're going to enjoy getting to know him as well. So folks, if you enjoyed this, you can we'll have the link to Jake's Linktree in the description. You can check out some stand-up videos, as well as if you're in Albuquerque, check out his show Hardcore Comedy that he produces. And also support Dry Heat Comedy Club in Albuquerque if you haven't been yet. Sarah and her wife Kelly are delightful people, and they put on really great shows. And quite frankly, look forward to life bringing me to Albuquerque to see what the excitement is for myself firsthand. So thank you all for being here, and let's talk to Jake Otero. So if you're not doing that on stage yet, I think that's a great premise. That you switch your major to accounting and you're dyslexic. I feel like that's rife for bits, dude.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's so funny because the major I had before that was anthropology.
Uh-huh.
So the joke there was I have a major in anthropology and I'm a stand-up comedian, which means I hate money. That's all that means. And then now I'm dyslexic trying to do an accounting degree. I don't know what I'm doing with life. I think I'm manic, but who knows?
Well, it's kind of an abrupt shift because archaeology is like, or anthropology is like looking into the past, and accounting is very like, to me, those are very like different, like brain hemisphere kind of disciplines.
For sure. Yeah, I actually never thought of it like that. That's actually really crazy. Like, anthropology is in the past, and then accounting is kind of like in the future, what's going on now. That's actually, I've never thought that. But yeah, it's actually really interesting because I love like the problem solving type stuff. And I figure the math is a learning curve, but I guess we'll find that out.
Oh yeah, like I think about it as like pattern recognition also, like noticing trends, data analysis. I think a lot about that kind of stuff. Like I have analytics for this, so I'm always like, oh, where are people listening? How are they doing it? So, and then the other thing I think of the most is especially I watch maybe I watch a bit too many Netflix doc series, but like there's always like somebody who's got to like notice the financial irregularity, like a forensic accountant. That could be you.
That would be so sick. I've actually been looking up stuff because, like, the thing when you get into accounting is getting into like the big four, which is like these companies that do audits for like the Fortune 500 companies. And that's
Yeah.
like kind of the top. That's like getting past the seller type stuff for accounting. But, but like, I hear some of the stories of it and like they're working like 12-hour days and it's like, it's really crazy. But then there's other aspects that you can get into, like the forensic accounting and just a bunch of other crazy stuff that action movies would be about. So like there's definitely different routes that I'm kind of looking at, but the main reason why I kind of went with accounting was because I feel like it would help with stand up, just because at a certain point you are your own company,
Yes.
and just kind of knowing the ins and outs and taxes and all that, I figured that would help because I've been trying to like make my whole life revolve around stand up, which is kind of weird, but that's just kind of where I'm at.
No, I get that. Like when I first moved to New York City, I was very much of that like struggling artist kind of mindset where I was like piecing together temp jobs and crappy call center jobs. And then I was going out and doing sets and open mics and trying to get any show I can get. This is like how I knew Sarah when I was doing all of that during all of that time. And
Yeah.
in the last few years, obviously the pandemic has kind of like changed that somewhat, but I've had a lot more stability, and as a result of that, I feel like I have more energy for creativity because my brain is not being occupied by panic and depression as much.
It, exactly. And see, that's the thing is I'm kind of like a planner, so I kind of want to, have everything good so that way I can focus on the stand up and everything, not having to be like too worried about everything else.
Yeah, exactly. And then on a quick sidebar, and because I want to trace this as well, like I think the more people who like wear punk shirts and like Ramones gear and like I see you're wearing, if we can get more of
Yeah.
those that mindset into the professional fields, I feel like we can slowly start changing the curve of the world of the culture
Dude.
as a whole, because so much of everything that I've learned as far as like principles, certain all of my sort of like DIY business sort of knowledge, all that comes from punk rock.
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of the reason why I was like, okay, accounting, work for myself, that type of thing. And then when it comes to any type of like special or anything that I want to do, I want it to be me. I want to have control over it. It's just the DIY thing. It's just so cool. And that's why like the comedy club that Sarah and Kelly run now, which is Dry Heat, is the coolest fucking thing in the world because it's a complete DIY club and we have the
Yeah.
freedom to do what we want there. And it's just the things that Sarah and Kelly have done with Dry Heat has just been phenomenal for the comedy scene here. It's so awesome.
Yeah, like it really, from my perspective, it almost sounds like I don't know how much of a comedy scene that Albuquerque had before Dry Heat came into existence, but it seems like they're like the CBGB of comedy in Albuquerque is kind of what I'm picking up
Exactly.
from. Is that kind of what it
That's
is?
yeah, That's 100% what it is. It's so sick. I've never heard it explained like that, but that's essentially what it is. And it's just so cool because it's like before dry heat was there, we like I mean we had like bar shows and everything, but
Yeah.
ever since dry heat came, they were kind of like the guinea pigs to see if that could actually survive again here in Albuquerque. And now we have a bunch of like, well, not a bunch, but we have two other clubs that have been popping up here, and dry heat was kind of the one to show like, okay, this is a sustainable thing that can happen here. But yeah, it was it's definitely the CBGB of comedy here. It's so cool.
Amazing. Well, it certainly has that. And from what I can see, the shows that happen there certainly is more to like my kind of sense of humor and the kind of sense of humor that we were all involved in, like mostly centered around like the alt scene in New York, like the Creek and all the kind of ancillary Brooklyn venues. What are the other two clubs in Albuquerque? So you got Dry Heat. What else is there?
So right now we have Quesada's Comedy Club and Cantina, which is that one's not in Albuquerque proper. It's kind of in the outskirts. It's in a town called Bernalillo, and that one is through. It's in a casino, and Stephen Michael Quesada, he was in Breaking Bad. He's from here, and so he kind of opened the club under his name out
Uh huh.
there. And so that one is active. There's people that come in. That one's going. And then I believe, from what I've been hearing, in the summer, we're getting the hyenas here in Albuquerque, which is going to be pretty cool.
Oh, sick. So there's like a real audience for comedy in Albuquerque now.
Oh yeah, definitely. Which is what's really crazy is just this past few months we've had a wild run. We had Seinfeld was just here, Jesselnick was here, Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer, and then we have Mark Norman coming, which is like all within the span of just this year, which is like a few years ago it was unheard of. So now like having all of these names coming through, it's the scene here is starting to bubble up, and it's really cool being on the ground floor of something like that. It's pretty crazy.
That's amazing. It sounds a lot like when I started doing stand up in Baltimore in like 2007, and
Oh wow.
there was like nothing. There was in Baltimore proper, there was the Baltimore Comedy Factory which used to be downtown. And I love to tell other comedians this because they immediately shudder, especially headliners. They used to blanket businesses all throughout Baltimore City, Baltimore County with these $20 all you can drink tickets. So
Oh,
fuck a two drink minimum. Just pack them in there, get them totally plastered, and then try to do comedy.
that's wild.
In that environment. And then the other place that's I would call like the A room now is Magooby's Joke House. They have a big I started there. It was like a tiny like basement under a restaurant, and now it's in an old dinner theater space. So they get like
Oh
your
wow.
big headliners, like your Nikki Glazers, like that
Yeah.
level. So dude, I'm so stoked to hear that the scene is you're at this epicenter of this like uh, blossoming scene.
Yeah, it's actually it's really crazy because even from when I started, because I'm still pretty new
Hmm.
in terms of stand up. I'm about to hit my third year,
Uh huh.
and just within these 3 years is just it's been insane. Like the we have open mics all week, even some on the weekends. You have a chance to get up all throughout the week. And then we have shows on the weekends. There's just so much opportunity to get up. And then with all these other bigger clubs coming out, like we have all these opportunities to get our comedy in front of them. Like this weekend, I'm actually featuring for Chris Estrada,
Hmm.
which is like, it's a huge deal to me because it's like, I've never had like somebody of like that caliber, like kind of see my stand up, which is it's really intense, but like being part of the ground floor of everything, it kind of gives you the ability to be kind of first pick for a lot of these like opportunities because you've kind of proven yourself in just a short time of just what's going on. It's pretty crazy.
No, dude, that's so cool. And compared to like if you were like 3 years into like doing stand up, if you were in Los Angeles, like you would probably still be
Yeah,
doing like Tuesday nights in like Long Beach somewhere or something like
yeah,
that. Chris, I have
definitely.
never met Chris, but I'm in kind of, I've heard of him because I know he does stuff at the Punk Rock Museum, and I had
Yeah,
Vinny on recently, and he's kind of like one of the brains behind that. So
yeah,
and when I initially was like, oh, who should I have on the podcast this year? In between these two worlds, I can already tell we're getting along here because,
yeah,
like when Sarah was like, oh, you should have Jake on, and I feel like I'm really enjoying this vibe right now, dude.
yeah.
um,
For sure. Same.
are you from Albuquerque originally?
Yes, yeah. Born and raised here.
Okay, so you're born and raised, so you knew it. Uh, I'm actually curious. I'm sure everyone asks this. Is there a Albuquerque before Breaking Bad and an Albuquerque after Breaking Bad? Like, was the popularity of that show, did that bring change to the city?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So before Breaking Bad, it was kind of just a Passover city. Like
Mm-hmm.
I remember being really young and we would like go travel to like Denver or like we went to Disney World and people would ask, they'd be like, where are you from? We're like, "Oh, we're from New Mexico." They're like, "Oh, from Mexico." And we're like, "No, there's a state called New Mexico." Like it's so funny because that joke is out there, but that's like I have legit like seen this happen.
Uh huh.
Like it was so crazy. But then after Breaking Bad, we like you go to Old Town on the weekends and there's so many tourists and they're going to buy like candy blue meth and they're getting all the merch. Like the lady who lives in Walter White's house has like gates up and like cusses at people who come by to see. And then like after that whole show, I think word got yeah, she's crazy. But
No, I
like
would be
after that
too if I had like insane like prestige TV people just like taking pictures of my house.
yeah, like it's pretty insane. Like it looks like a prison. Her little house is just gated
Uh huh.
everywhere, barbed wire. It's nuts. But like after like Breaking Bad, I think word got out and how cheap it is to film here. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a huge Netflix studios. They actually just got contracted to build another big studio here. So now you get really weird stuff. Like there's one of the bars downtown. It's called Anodyne and Kristen Stewart was there playing pool, just no security,
Huh.
just there chilling. And the cast of Euphoria was at one of the bars downtown. Like, we're not used to it. It's so weird, but that's definitely life in Albuquerque after Breaking Bad for sure.
Oh, that's got to be surreal, I would imagine, especially because,
It's
yeah,
nuts.
because I imagine my knowledge of New Mexico pre Breaking Bad was like, oh, I believe they like turquoise jewelry, and I think there's like,
Yeah.
and I can't remember if this is New Mexico or this might have been Texas, but I remember seeing on like Parts Unknown once that there's like the Frito chili thing, like the Frito pie.
Yes. Yeah. 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 That's definitely big here. Yeah.
Which which I'm all for. I had it in Texas once. And I'm like, I could, this would kill you if you ate it every day, but I'm enjoying it right now. Um, sim,
Yeah. That's like our big thing here is chili. Like outside of Breaking Bad, it's New Mexico chili. Like it's really weird, but we have a lot of pride in that. I myself don't like chili that much, but
oh,
everybody else does.
Sam, I grew up in Maryland, and so like everything is just crabs in the wire, and I'm gonna embarrass myself like picking crabs, like when you like crack open the claws with the hammer and stuff. I'm not really that good at
Yep.
it. I much prefer like when they just give me the crab like in a cake or something. I don't want to work too much for like my two bites. Um,
Exactly. I'm with you there.
uh, so growing up in Albuquerque, what was kind of like your experience growing up? What was your home life like as a kid?
Home life was great. My parents, my dad worked, my mom worked too when I was little, and so we would have like auntie over to like watch us. But like as we got older, my parents they had like pretty rough childhoods. So mine and my sisters and siblings' childhoods were amazing.
Hmm.
But the thing is in Albuquerque, there's not much to do. So
Right.
you start drinking and you start doing drugs and stuff. So once I hit about like 13 years old, I just got mixed in with a bad crowd and kind
Hmm.
of, started smoking weed real young and then started drinking. And it sucks because like back then, if I would have known stand up existed here, I would have 100% been all for that. But when you're young here in Albuquerque, you just really don't know much, but just getting fucked up pretty much. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of what we all were just drawn to. And then I didn't really stop doing any of that until I was about 24, which is when I started stand up. And then life got better from there.
Uh-huh.
But childhood wise, like childhood was good. Teenage years were rough just because of the weed and drinking and
Mm-hmm.
everything. And then now life is good again. But
Yeah.
yeah.
There's this kind of weird duality I've found with the small town in that there's two sides that it can affect you, especially if there's like nothing going on. Because similarly, I'm from a place called Calvert County, which or I hate to do bits at you, but I like talking with comedians. This thing I've been
Yeah.
where I'm actually from isn't even big enough to be a town or a hamlet. It's a CDP, a
Oh,
census designated place is
yeah.
is where I'm from. So like when you're from a place like that,
That's wild.
yeah. So like when you're from a place like that that has not made any kind of investment in like youth activities, like if you don't have like a skate park or like a uh, not like a McDonald's ball pit, but something for like teenagers to do so that they don't just like sit around. Like we used to like friends. I had friends that would literally just go hang out in like the fast stop, the convenience store parking lot, and that was Friday night.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, definitely.
and that stasis, like yes, you will find anything to make it more interesting, and sometimes that can be drinking and drugs real real easy. The other side of that, the other side of it, which I always try to encourage people, or I guess I gravitate to, is like that's when you like start making your own fun, and that's where you like start a shitty garage band and like rent out the
Yep.
community center and like flyer your high school and like create your own sort of like little community, because it's all about those age ranges are all about like trying to find like your tribe, I think, in a way. Like
Yes.
where do I fit in? Like I found the theater kids. It's like, okay, these are my folks. But seems like there was some lost years during that time for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it was so funny because, I'm such a big punk rock dude where like I never really was able to find them. So all of my friends were all into rap and like all that stuff, which I love rap too, but it's like I was never able to, go to shows or anything like that because nobody would go to them with me. And then like it just kind of just added probably to the depression and everything that I was feeling, and until I realized like, oh, I need to be who I need to be, because that's the thing is with the small towns is like once you find your circle, it doesn't matter if you feel like you belong or not, you're going to stay in that circle because it's so small here.
Yeah.
And it's kind of rough, and then it makes you hate the city, and it makes you, oh, I want to get out of here. But once I've like kind of found my own, got sober, and like found my path, like I love Albuquerque. It's
Uh
awesome.
huh.
How do I want to move? Of course, one day. Like New York is where I obviously want to be,
Mm-hmm.
but for the time being, until I get my degree, I'm fine here. It's amazing once you have the right people around you.
Oh, absolutely. And like I think you're in a place now where like 3 years into comedy, like it's you're not completely new. You still have a lot to learn, but I think that there's only it's only going to get better, I think, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Like the foundation is being laid, and to get opportunities like featuring for like cool headliners that come through town, like that's only going to be beneficial like once you find yourself in the bigger place and you find that transition of like almost, because going to the big city, I almost had to start over for a little bit and then like rework into a community up here. But I like it sounds like I like where you're at now. That's pretty exciting, Jake. Um
yeah.
so were you a punk guy like early on? When did you discover that music?
Oh, I remember the day. I had to be I was really young. I was probably 7 or 8, and my cousin picked me up from school because I had a tough time when I was like really, really young, just kind of behaving in class because I was probably severely like had ADHD, just never got tested
Right.
for it or whatever. So like every now and then my mom would let my cousin pick me up from school, like take me out early, and then just we'd go and hang out and stuff. And I remember he picked me up and we were in his car and he was like, do you like punk rock? And I was like, I don't know what that is. He was like, I'm gonna play this, and it was Time Bomb by Rancid. And
Sick.
I was like, I want my whole life to be about this. So like ever since then, like I anything that was punk, I was like, I'm listening to it, I'm a fan of it. So yeah, I was really, really young and ever since then it's always kind of been part of my life. Like no matter what other music I was listening to, I would always get pulled back down by punk for sure.
Dude, like absolutely. There's just something really magical about when you hear that for your first punk song. And to hear it from like one of the best punk records ever made is
Oh yeah.
pretty good starting point. There's just so many, like that album is like, I think there's like 19 songs on that album, but there's like banger after banger, like over the journey
Yes.
of those songs. Uh like I can't get over, like I when I first moved to New York, I definitely went to 52nd and Broadway. I was like, none of these cars are going my
Yep.
way. They're none of them are
Yeah.
going my way. Um,
Exactly.
if I ever get next time I'm in the Bay Area, this would be a little more difficult, but take the 60 bus, get.
Yep.
And I definitely went to 53rd and Third from the Ramones song. I did all of that shit.
Hell yeah.
Um,
That's so funny.
oh, oh, dude, and Rancid. I'm actually going to see them with Green Day this year. I'm really looking forward.
Oh, hell
I'm
yeah. That's
I
awesome. In New York?
Yeah, in New York. So when Green Day
Oh,
come
shit.
to New York, they're playing the City Field where the Mets play, and
Yes.
the lineup is like ridiculous. It's Green Day, Rancid, the Smashing Pumpkins, and the Linda Lindas, who are
Oh, shit.
uh, who are like they're kids, but they're punk as fuck.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's dude, that's sick. So I wonder, did you ever get to go to Warp Tour or anything like that when you were growing up?
I actually didn't. It was like around when I was like younger and everything. I think my sister had gone a few times, but I was never able to go. I could never get anybody to go with me.
Um, I would have taken you. I was the guy. I because I went for like 3 years straight, like '05 through '08, and I would be the one like
Yeah.
I would be the one who drove everybody to Meriwether Post Pavilion. Was like, all right, guys, let's find parking. Could someone remember where we parked? I was
Yeah.
like the dad of the group. But dude, Warped Tour was so sick. Like like if there is like one thing that I've got like a real heavy nostalgia for, it was getting to go that, because it really was as magical as the people who were there describe it. Like it was always fucking hot and dirt. You were always fucking
Yeah.
hot and dirty. There would always be like random people would just come up to you with headphones and be like, "Hey, this is my band. Check us out. Do you want to?" And like, do you want to buy a CD for $5? Or
That's wild.
smarter bands would get like a hot girl to do that.
Yeah.
That definitely worked on me a few times, and then you would just be everyone would like run to the big blow up board and write down their schedule and be like, okay, so if we can catch Boys Like Girls here, and then we'll head over to Amber Pacific, then we can see Census Fail, and then we can see Against Me. I'm a, man. I remember the first time I saw Against Me on Warped, my mind just
Yeah.
exploded. It was right around the time New Wave came out, and they were so fucking good. So good.
That's so sick. Well, see, that's something that I hear about like Warped Tour, how special it was. Like that's how people found their bands. Like that's how you found out about new
Oh,
shit.
dude, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I happen to have this right here. So I found this on the ground at Warp Tour in like
Oh
2007.
shit.
So this is like this. I don't even know if this record label Emerald Moon exists anymore, but this was like
Yeah.
founded to like get bands from the Baltimore area some opportunities. And there's look, All Time Low have a song on here.
Oh my God. Wow. Holy
I
shit.
remember just finding this on the ground, and they were like a local band. And then the most recent time I saw them, they were opening for Blink. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts, dude. That's so fucking crazy. It's the same thing with like Turnstile. It's like they just kind of popped in and then next thing you know, they're taking over the fucking world. It's like, holy shit. Like,
Oh
that's
yeah,
nuts.
they're pretty crazy live too. They were opening for Blink last year, and the crowd was
Yeah.
the drummer would always play some kind of like crazy drum solo.
That's
he was
sick.
super sick. And what was also cool is my wife is my wife's more of like an indie, like acoustic singer songwriter. That's kind of her favorite
Yeah,
music, and she likes pop punk. But if you were to like play her any kind of like classic hardcore band, she'd probably be like,
yeah,
no. But she got into Turnstile, she got into Mystery and
yeah,
Holiday, and I was like, "Dun, dun, dun, dun," like bouncing
yeah.
along to the rhythm, and I was like, all right,
Hell yeah.
this is fucking cool. So did like punk bands come through town? What was like your what are some cool shows you remember?
So I know that like lately we've been getting a lot before the pandemic, we had like Bad Religion was gonna come and then also Descendants, Circle Jerks are always here as well.
Nice.
Adolescents are always here too.
Oh, cool.
Um yeah, I think that's like my next show that I have to see is Descendants are coming, and I think that's sometime in March or something like that. But we get a lot of those like that type. Like I don't think like recently we've had like no effects or like any of those big
Hmm.
ones. Misfits would never come here. Like, well, I mean, where they are now,
Right.
but like I'm sure like in the 90s like there was more cool shit coming, but now it's mostly the ones that I see coming here mostly are is like Circle Jerks,
Hmm.
Adolescents, Descendants come a lot. But yeah, I was really bummed out about the Bad Religion thing because I was so stoked to see them, and then the pandemic came, which sucked.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the type of the things that we get. And then the local punk scene here is really cool too. We have Russian Girlfriends, which is my favorite here.
Oh,
I
cool.
know the guy. I'm biased. I know the
Uh huh.
guy really well, Ian Gerald. But yeah, they're like the scene is cool. But yeah, in terms of like the bands that we get here is mostly like those
Uh-huh.
types and
Like
stuff.
kind of the legacy punk bands. If there is
Yeah.
such a thing as a legacy punk band, I think there kind of is. Like um
Oh yeah.
uh, dude, the Descendants are probably the first like real punk band I ever heard of because like my entire punk upbringing is the patient zero is Blink 182. So then I started when
Yeah.
they like, oh, we love the Descendants. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go find the Descendants. And this is like pre-streaming
Yeah.
days, and it was kind of hard to get into the Descendants because you couldn't just go to
Yeah.
Target and find that CD.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
yeah, but I heard them and I was like, because I always veered more towards the like sort of cartoon character side of punk, like your Ramones, Blink, the goofball stuff. I wasn't too mad at the government when I was younger, uh,
Yeah.
till I got till
Yeah.
I got to college.
Yeah, makes sense.
Is there like a dream band that you haven't seen yet that you want to see? Is it the Descendants or is it another one?
Honestly, it would have to be like the original Misfits for sure.
Ah,
And
yeah.
then on top of them, like, well, obviously the Ramones too. But I fucking like, I understand why people hate Fat Mike, but I love No Effects, man. Like,
Uh huh.
I want to see them before they stop playing. And I think those three would be definitely my dream ones because Fat Mike is just ridiculous.
He is. He is. I know I've interviewed a
Yeah,
few people in his general orbit. I've not talked to him
yeah,
yet, but I remember because I remember seeing No Effects on Warped a couple years, and like everyone got so mad at him with like the Las Vegas joke, and then they like had to take a
yeah.
year off. But like he said much worse shit to us at Baltimore. Like he called us all like
Yeah.
crackheads and like drug dealers, and it's like and said how gross he was. People were throwing shoes at him.
Yeah. See, I understand why people hate him. I get it, but he's just fucking. I love him, man. Like he's just so fucking. Like he goes up there in a dress, just fucking drunk as shit. I'm sober, but still, I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. I love that
Uh
shit.
huh. Yeah, like as far as like punk, the attitude, he's still very much that. I'm curious. Like
100%.
I've always wondered because I'm actually curious what he's like off stage, like when the cameras aren't on him, because I wonder because he seems like that's. I feel like maybe I wonder if he's like that all the time or if he's like very like chill off stage. I'm genuinely curious because I get the feeling from like his solo stuff, like the Cokie the Clown things, that there's like a real
Yes.
darkness rattling around in him somewhere. So I wonder what he's like when like he's alone. He's just like,
Yeah. See, I think the same thing too. I think he's at least somewhat tolerable because I know he like hangs out with like Doug Stanhope and
mm-hmm,
everything, and I don't think stand-up would have people around that. It's annoying as shit. So it's like I kind of get
Yeah,
that.
that's an interesting. I didn't know that, but I almost see them as being very similar because Stanhope, I've similarly there's a similar kind of lovable curmudgeon energy to both of them.
Yes.
I I think that's wild. And so when you were like listening to punk, like so we're drinking we're drinking, we're smoking weed, we're listening to punk.
Yep.
When were you a comedy fan also? Like when were you exposed to stand up?
Stand up was shit probably around the same time. I was too young. I was had to be in like 8 or 9, and I remember the first special that I watched. It was because I'm from New Mexico and I'm Hispanic. It was George Lopez, "Why You Crying?"
Uh-huh.
And I was like just blown away. I was like, it was just insane to me that somebody could be up there telling jokes for an hour. And then so I had loved it from there. And then after that one, I had watched Cat Williams, Pimp Chronicles,
Mhm.
and then Eddie Murphy, Delirious. And then after watching those, I had been just a fan of comedy since then. And I never really was like, oh, I can do this. I thought these were like freaks of nature. I didn't understand how somebody could be up there killing for like an hour. Like, I was like, oh, that's not a human quality. These guys are just
Right.
something else. And so I was never like, oh, I want to do that until I had like, once I had gotten sober, I had realized that oh, I've never dealt with my problems. Like
Mhm.
I was just drowning them with drugs and alcohol. So I was like really depressed, and I was like, I had kind of rediscovered stand up. I just got obsessed with it again. And then that's when I was like, oh, okay, I know what an open mic is now. Let's go try this out. And then it kind of stuck from there, honestly.
Right on. And was the getting sober, was there like a moment of clarity that happens with that decision, or was it like more of a gradual thing? Did you have like that one night where you're like, fuck, I got to stop this?
Yeah, it was definitely just like a one night type thing. It was my sister had announced that she was getting married and that she was moving,
Mhm.
and I just kind of like made because I was really close with my sister and she kind of did life the right way. She got good grades, she got married, and I was just like kind of looking. I was like, oh, I haven't done anything with life, and her life is going on. So I was like, oh, I definitely need to make a change. And then so it was kind of from there, and then it just kind of went on. What it initially was is I was like, oh, I'm going to stay sober until I get some type of success, and then I'll get back to it. And then
Right.
she had my niece, and then I was like, oh, like I'm like seeing my niece. I was like, oh yeah, I'm never drinking or smoking again. Like that kind of
Mhm.
solidified it. And life is better sober for me. I needed
That's
it.
good. Good on you, man. It's good to recognize
Thanks.
when a change needs to be made, and then you're just able to do it. I
Definitely.
have a lot of peers who probably can't recognize that. I've definitely known some seen that like in my family as well. So good on you, man, for seeing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So talking uh about George Lopez, so it's George Lopez, Cat Williams, and Eddie Murphy. So
Yeah.
Delirious, that's like a hallmark special for so many people. But I also think Cat Williams, and I've heard a lot of other comics say this. I feel like even though he's very successful, I feel like Cat Williams does not get the credit for being as funny as he is by like the
Yes.
greater sense of comedy fans. Like you never see like critics talking about how great a performer Cat Williams is. Like who can do a Netflix special and open with like 15 minutes of Jacksonville, Florida?
Yeah, exactly. It is actually really insane that he is not held up there with some of the greatest because, like, just I'll even go back like every now and then and go watch Pimp Chronicles again, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it's so hilarious to this day.
Yeah.
Like, he is definitely one of the greats. It baffles me that he's not like spoken highly of.
Exactly. Everyone's talking him now because he's doing all these like wild interviews where he's talking like.
Yeah.
So I haven't watched any of him, but I guess he's like spilling. I'm gonna sound super old. I guess he's spilling a lot of tea on like insider show business.
Yeah, that's right. I haven't seen him either, but yeah, he's definitely spilling some tea, is what I would
Yeah,
guess.
he is such a good stand up. I remember he had this bit. I can't remember what it was from, but he was talking about like like finally like he wanted a motorcycle and he was riding a motorcycle and then he ended up like laying it down, I think. But I just remember
Oh yeah,
that
yeah,
as
yeah.
being like such a great bit. The other George Lopez bit I really remember is I think he was talking about like growing up poor and getting like one of those popsicles that has two sticks in it, and then like his mother like grabbing it and like splitting it between him and like a sibling.
Yeah, lick it and pass it. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and I love comics that and for me it was like when I see bits like that, that's like a window into a way of living that, you know, as like a like growing up in a very white part of Maryland with not a ton of diversity, that's like a window into like how other people live that I wasn't going to probably get like
Yes,
as a kid.
definitely. For sure. And that's why, like, my parents, because all of my relatives, they love George Lopez. Every time he comes here to New Mexico, they all go see him. And so it was kind of like they loved him because that was a window into what their childhood was. They were poor,
Mm-hmm.
they lived exactly like that. And so that kind of like it instills it in your head somewhat because they're like, oh, they love this dude and he's out here telling jokes. So I was like, oh, I want to be the funny guy. So it's like in high school or not high school was weird, but in like elementary school, middle school, I'm always trying to be funny, class clown, and everything like
Mm-hmm.
that because you see that as you're young how much they love this guy, and so yeah, that's definitely why they loved him though, is because they were like, oh yeah, that was my childhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that the same way like the music I listened to like really made me feel kind of seen like, and I always gravitated to the bands that were kind of like funny older brother suburban kind of types. Like that was I felt I saw myself reflected in that way. So similarly, I imagine like, oh, that was our life. That was our life. I relate to that. That's something I've been trying to think
Definitely.
about more and more in stand up is like how do I that's I think going to be my next era. That'll be my next era of as a performer is how can I be how can I like reflect the audience's life back to them in a unique way and not like a super broad way. Like I watch a lot of Gabriel Iglesias. I think he's amazing at that. Like he's like you know
Yeah,
exactly what that guy's life is, but he's always like very but he's like very real. You never feel like you have to like Google like what something is afterwards. You know what I mean?
exactly, for sure. And that's kind of like how my stand up is as well, is it's like because I'm very short. I'm 5'3".
Uh
So
huh.
it's like a lot of my stand up is like, okay, I want you guys to see the world from my perspective. So I talk about like dating, like how as a short person, some of the things I'm scared of, and people love it. And but like, you know, that's kind of where I'm at now, is like trying to find that relatability even though they're not short, but they're like, oh yeah, I can see what he's talking about. Just that relatability is what I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to convey and stand up.
Oh yeah, I watched some of your clips, and you're like very amicable on stage. Like there's a real like your friendliness like really comes through the
Yeah.
microphone, sure. And similarly, I'm 6'7", so like
Oh,
I was
nice.
on the other side of that. Like one of my earliest bits was like
Yeah.
miming being on playground equipment. It's all me just like being too tall for shit. Um, I just got
That's awesome.
my wife and I we honeymooned in Asia, and that's a place that is not built for tall people at all.
Definitely.
The amount of times I must have hit my head innumerable. I'm probably a little bit slower as a result of it.
Yeah. I feel that. You know what was so convenient being very short is getting on the subways in New York.
Uh-huh.
That was super convenient. I got right in there, man. It was
Oh,
perfect.
dude, I bet like on the summertime on some of those trains, like when the AC is really going, it'll suck my hair up into it.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I oh dude, yeah, I fucking I've been here for so long. I still love it. I what do you think it was about New York that has made that like your ultimate goal? Because you're a lot closer to Los Angeles. So I'm just curious what about New York speaks to you.
Definitely the comics for sure, and the style of comedy. Because the thing that you realize with stand up in like LA is they're doing stand up to get into movies, to get into all this other stuff.
Right.
In New York, everybody's about the jokes,
Hmm.
and that's what draws me to it. Because, and you think about it, some of the best comedians have come from there and are still there. Like my number one favorite comedian of all time is Dave Attell, and
Yeah.
his style, the jokes, like that's what draws me there. And it's like I've been to LA a few times, and it's too close to home.
Uh-huh.
New York, it was just so exotic to me. But yeah, Dave Attell, that style, guys, you guys are just about the jokes. Like I'm for it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So like when you say like LA is like doing stand up to get on TV, are we doing thinking more like characters and act outs kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. And they're just, I don't know, this might be like personal, but like the comics that I met in New York are way nicer than the comics that I met in LA. Like everybody in New York is just so cool and awesome. LA, I met like two, three people who were really cool.
I
But
I'm a little biased, but I've been doing stand up here for a while. I know a lot of really cool comedians in New York, for sure.
yeah,
And some
hell
yeah,
yeah.
and similar to your point, I also feel like the audiences, uh, like the New York audiences, like kind of train a New York comedian to be a certain way because you just want to keep hitting them with jokes, keep hitting them with jokes, like be quicker than they can be. Like if they try to come at you, you flip it right back on them immediately.
Exactly. And that's what I love. I remember the first time I performed in New York, I was very, very nervous because I was like, oh, I'm from Albuquerque. Yeah, I'm good here. Is this going to translate?
Hmm.
But that's my style is that because I love Attell so much, I'm like, oh, I want to be quick. I want to do all this. And I went and I did, I don't know if you know, it's Todd Montesi. I did his one in one show out in the Lower East Side.
Oh, I don't know that
And
show.
it was that one, it was really cool. It was in a basement, and well, I guess that's most
It's a
shows in
lot of
New York.
them, yeah.
But for me, yeah, exactly, yeah. For me, it was so cool. So I went, and I was like really nervous, and it was an amazing show. And then I went and did QED, and I was like, oh, the audiences love the fast paced type, quick, punchy stuff. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be my home for sure. Like I loved it.
Amazing. Yeah, I love QED. I don't I live pretty not
QED's
yeah, I
awesome.
live not too far from there. So that's like my new local spot since the Creek moved to Texas.
Oh shit, yeah, yeah, I feel
Yeah.
that.
Uh
Yeah, the story is cool as shit. I love
oh
it.
yeah, I love Astoria. Queens to me, like as a if I can give you a little tip, Queens is where it's at for as far as like coming here and living. I personally think.
Yeah,
Um Certainly more affordable than Brooklyn, and also the food wise is amazing. You just hop on the 7 train and you just get off in different neighborhoods. You can get like
yeah,
100 different nationalities worths of cuisine. It's pretty rad.
that's the move for sure.
One dude, 100%. During the summertime, there's this thing called the Queens Night Market out in this. It's near where the tennis stadium is, near where the World's Fair was, and it's just
Yeah,
a bunch of again like from around the world, bunch of different food vendors. Most things are around $5, and it's like, I think I'll have some Bangladeshi, and then I think I will have some Hong Kong ice jelly, and then I will have some Pakistani. It's every
that's
it's the kind
amazing.
of shit. It's the stuff I wanted to find when I moved here. I was like, I
Yeah,
just need to be amongst some. I need some food that's more interesting than like regular takeout and pizza. Essentially, Golden
yeah,
Corral.
exactly. I feel that. Yeah,
and
yeah.
and so when did you start? So you're 3 years in. So that's 2000 and is that like during the pandemic or a little after the pandemic?
It was like right after. It was May of 21.
Okay, May of 21. So kind of like
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember the timeline. So vaccines, I think, are about to maybe vaccines were about to be a thing. There was hope, but we weren't quite back yet.
yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think shit, I don't even remember if I was vaxxed at that point. I'm pretty sure I was. But like the reason why we had this one open mic, it was in a place it's called Inside Out,
Uh huh.
and it's this bar where there's a stage and there's no roof on the place. So it's like completely out in the
Uh
elements.
huh.
And I guess everybody was like, "Oh, well, since there's no roof, this is safe." So we were like, "Okay, cool." But yeah, that's where I did my first mic, and it kind of stuck from there. It's a
Amazing.
weird place.
That's an interesting environment to start doing stand up in for the first time. Like starting stand up is already like a big, oh boy, here we go. And now to do it in the midst of like a global health crisis outside.
Yeah,
Talk about like
it,
trial by fire.
yeah, exactly. And what was so crazy about it was like this was right after the pandemic. People are itching to get back outside, so these open mics had crowds of like 50 people. And
Whoa.
so it's like that much more. I was nervous as shit. And honestly, like, I probably wouldn't have done it again if, like, I had a one joke or a few jokes that worked. Like even now looking back, I was like, oh, those are trash. But like, I remember a few of the comments came up. They were like, that was amazing. You need to keep doing it. And I just kept doing it from there because it did feel cool too. But yeah, I remember that there was a shit ton of people there just because everybody was itching to get back out. It was crazy.
Oh yeah, just like I need to be anywhere except my house right now. With
Yeah,
I
pretty
can't
much.
stand anybody that I live with. I need to be somewhere without a roof and walls.
That is exactly what happened. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I remember just like going and sitting in the park just to be anywhere except the other crazy thing that first summer is that it was New York was the quietest it had ever been. I would go sit in the park and I could hear like the power plant across the river in Manhattan, and
That's
I could hear
crazy.
like the one or two cars that would come by. It was apocalyptic. It was
Yeah,
insane.
that's got to be wild there because it's so noisy.
Oh,
So just hearing it quiet would be creepy.
oh yeah, it was wild. And so like when you started, you knew your style was that like I want to do like right a bunch of jokes, set up punch, I want to come at them really quickly. Gonna do that. That's kind of like your thing.
Definitely, for sure. Yeah, I was just so and still am so obsessed with Attell and that type of jokes, and like I love Jesselnick's type, like just quick setup punch, misdirect. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm all about that
Oh yeah,
for
I
sure.
loved Jeselnik. I loved Mitch Hedberg. He's probably still my all
Yes.
time favorite. Dimitri Martin I
Yep.
loved him for his joke writing. I've also in the last couple years have grown a fonder appreciation for like long form storytelling, or I guess what people would call an Edinburgh style show, where
Yeah.
um, like you're sort of like like a comedic monologue or like a theater piece. A really good one of those I enjoy as well, like a Mike Birbiglia or somebody like that.
Yes, yeah, those are like really, really crazy because I have tried the storytelling type stuff in stand up and I'm just not able to do it. But one who I love, who's just gets everything down and just so funny, is Kyle Kinane. Is phenomenal with his stories,
Ky-
and I love it.
Kyle Kinane is it consistently makes me laugh every single time.
Yes,
Like
same.
every bit or video of his I see or everything I listen to, it's always that you know when you're like listening to a premise and you're like, that's really fucking good. I wish I thought of that. Um,
Yeah, yep.
uh, is that like he had this great I saw him do something about how like the president's been kidnapped genre of action movie has kind of fallen off in the last few years. I was just like,
Yeah,
that is awesome. Um, have you
it's so
have
good.
you ever so you've done so you started in Albuquerque and you've done New York. Where is have you performed anywhere else?
Yeah, Phoenix and then El Paso and then a lot of small towns in New Mexico and small towns in Denver or not small towns in Colorado.
Oh, okay,
But
cool.
oh yeah, and then I did like open mics and shit in LA and stuff.
Right on, right on.
Yeah, I
If you
like
ever go to LA again, there, my friend Ethan Stanislavski hosts a really cool show, and I think it's somewhere in North Hollywood.
hell
I liked
yeah.
his show quite a bit. I'm curious what your these road gigs I'll call them are these outside of Albuquerque gigs, because I remember when I would do like sets around Baltimore and like you just kind of show up in some random sports bar of dubious like friendliness. Like I always look for like the number of motorcycles in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Have you ever had anything? Have you ever had anything like that where you're just like got with like an indifferent at best, hostile at worst kind of performance situation?
Yeah, well, like I've gone places and I know that they're not gonna like my shit. Like I went to Farmington, New Mexico, and a lot of the people there is just like your typical biker, that type of stuff. And I was like, oh, I have jokes about Backstreet Boys and seeing Wicked on Broadway. Like I don't think that they're gonna like what I have to say. So it's like I know like that shit sucks, but then it's like I've done El Paso. El Paso is kind of like it's it's they're more open to like hearing that type of shit, so that was cool. But yeah, like I've done a show in Ruidoso, which is it's like in these casino shows, and it's the same thing. It's like, oh, they're not gonna want to hear about Broadway or Backstreet Boys and shit.
Right.
And so like now I'm at, it's so funny, but like now I'm at a time where I'm like, oh, I have material that I can fit for these people. So it's like for the most part, it's fine. Like I was in Ruidoso, I think it was in November of last year, and I had a blast. It was so
Yeah.
much fun just because like I kind of know what I'm getting into at this point. But yeah, I did a show in Phoenix that was fucking weird. It was like just a biker bar, and they did not want to hear anything I had to say, and I was headlining too. So it was like, yeah,
Oh.
this is bad. This is not good.
Oh, that's a tough one. It's where it's just come up. It's like let me just riff like 10 minutes on Honda versus Harley versus Kawasaki.
Yeah, yeah,
I had so many. It was always those kinds of shows because I've done tons of shows like that. So I always knew like if I bombed, but then like if someone else like did well with like very who's very different from me because when I started I was like very deadpan monotone, so that didn't always go well
yeah,
with like normal people. So like your regular comedy going audience or like ambush
yeah.
crowd. So and so like I learned to eventually like okay, well this is just not my these are not my people or this is not my night and just kind of
Yeah, yeah,
have it uh water off the duck's back when that kind of shit
yeah,
happens.
definitely.
Yeah, but like stand up is like one of the few. I feel like stand up and punk rock are the two kind of performance genres where you just get thrust into weird shit like that because nobody's gonna like force a like Broadway musical to like okay you're gonna perform outside with like one extension cord and if it comes unplugged everything stops like
Yeah.
you know like and I'm sure maybe there's some magician I know magicians can have tough rooms sometimes too but I feel like we're in that like our styles our scenes are very much the like we will do it any we'll perform anywhere well
Yeah.
anywhere you want to get people together we can do a show.
Oh yeah, 100%. And on top of that, it's like people will start throwing shows when they don't know anything about stand up. Like I was just at this bar. It was a bar show like last week or a few weeks ago. And we get there and there's no host, just the guy who owns the place. He's just like, "Oh, I just want to do comedy." And so he gets no information from us. And he's like, "All right, we're going to start the show." He goes up on stage and he starts talking about he's like, "You guys better laugh or I'm going to start throwing salt in your eyes." And everybody's just like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, so he's not getting any play. And then I'm standing there and he's like, "All right, we're going to get your first comic on here." And then he leans over to me. He's like, "What was your name again?" I was like, "I'm Jake Otero." He's like, "Give it up for Jake Otero, everybody." I'm like, "Dude," like, and he just cold opened me. I was just like, "All right." But it was so wild. Like, so, but then we're just like, "Oh, it's an audience. I'm going to tell jokes." It's like, no matter how many crazy situations you get into, it's just like the thing in my head is like, oh, this is a story to tell later. So it's like I'm gonna do
Hmm.
them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I always had fun doing those. Like, oh, this will be suck, but it'll be funny later when I'm
Yeah,
talking with my
exactly.
friends after the show.
Yeah.
Well, at least he gave you a microphone. I once had to do like a. I had this one thing that just kind of broke my brain. I had gotten into this festival in New York, and it was on one of the satellite shows, and they didn't have a microphone. So
Oh shit.
So like we were in this like I think it was a coffee shop too, so like
Yeah.
espresso machines going off,
Oh
and I'm
shit.
just and we're just kind of up there with no like amplification whatsoever. And I think I took it upon myself to like bring I had like a portable PA it was actually, I think, an acoustic guitar amp. And I like was like,
Oh
I
shit.
set up our own PA. I was like, we're not doing this again. Cause it was like Friday night, Saturday night. I was like, we deserve at
Yeah,
least this. It was, that was,
that's
but
nuts.
like, there are so many, but like, I love it because there's so many few things in my life that especially at that time that I loved enough to like go through that. Like if my day job, like if my day,
Yeah.
like if my old call center job was like, we need you to call from your cell phone or like some ridiculous shit. I've been like, oh, okay, well then I'm quitting. Absolutely not.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, but like there's the, when you find that passion for something, it's like, you'll go through whatever to do it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I drove 4 hours to get a 5 minute spot. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, it's just I wouldn't, because you start thinking about, oh, am I doing the right thing? It's like, what would I rather be doing? I wouldn't rather be doing anything else. So let's just fucking do
Yeah,
it. Like that's kind of the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Put something good on the playlist and then just get in
Yep.
it. And then the other fun thing is like the like hanging out with comics is like one of my favorite things to do. Like just being in a car. I remember taking a drive with this comic in New York, Kerry Gravenson, gave me a ride to Baltimore once because we both had shows in the area. And like we were just
Yeah.
like chopping it up, like going down the highway and like having the kinds of conversations that if I was just talking with like my non-comedy friends, it'd probably be weird, or like we wouldn't be like, oh, I don't know if I can talk about that with these people, but with comics I can.
Yeah.
I really
No, exactly. That's one of my favorite things too, is like just before the show is just outside of the comedy club, just kind of just chopping it up with everybody. It's so fun. That's my favorite part of it.
yeah, it's great. I mean, the shows are fun too, but the
Yeah,
hang is worthwhile for sure.
definitely.
um
For sure.
so let me some I like manifesting stuff on the show sometimes. I like talking about goals.
Yeah.
So maybe what is something, so 3 years in, what is something you want to do that you haven't done yet when it comes to stand up? That could be like producing, like making something. Is there something that's like, oh, that would be cool to do one day?
Definitely like featuring at like the major clubs around New Mexico. Like there's Stir Crazy out in Phoenix, and then Comedy Works in Denver, Hyenas in like Texas, and all that
Hmm.
stuff. Like that's definitely my main focus this year, is making sure my feature set is perfect, because like with all the opportunities you're able to get here in New Mexico, you kind of move too fast. So I was like, oh, I
Hmm.
want to have a headlining set. I want all this. I'm like, no, like feature set is more important. Let's get attainable goals and let's work on that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the goal for this year, is just perfect feature set, feature at all the clubs around here for sure.
Excellent. I think that's a great place to start. Like really hone that killer 20 to 30. And then like just like
Definitely.
that you can kind of go to a lot of places with, and having that in your pocket is going to be really, really excellent.
For sure. Definitely.
Awesome, man. Well, where can people find you if they want to know more?
Yeah, definitely. Just go to my Instagram. It's just Jake Otero Comedy. I keep all of my shows. I stay updated with all that, put them up there. And also, if you're in Albuquerque, New Mexico, go to Dry Heat Comedy Club. I'm there pretty much every weekend. If I'm not in the show, I'm hanging out there. So go through there, come hang out. It's always a good time for sure.
Fantastic. And I'm really glad that this that dry heat has become like the linchpin of the Albuquerque scene that it has, and that it is providing opportunities for folks like you to like get in front of a cool audience. Because I knew Sarah and Kelly for a while when they were in New York, so I was very happy to see like them go and build this thing and have it be really cool and popular right away in Albuquerque.
Yeah, it's been so amazing, and I owe everything to them, because like all of when I went to New York, all the shows that I got, it was all through Sarah and Kelly, because I've been able to meet these people that come to Dry Heat. So it's like, yeah, they shout out to Sarah and Kelly and Dry Heat. They've done amazing things for the scene here for sure.
Fantastic. I love to see that. Well, if I'm ever coming through Albuquerque, I'll make sure to see if I can drop in to Dry Heat, because I've heard so much about it.
Of
I want to
course.
experience it. And dude, this was really really nice getting to chat with you, man. I feel like we could go on for so much longer. So we'll probably have to chat again, I think, in the future.
Dude, for sure. Let me know. I'm always down. And hopefully I'll be in New York soon. We can hang out, hit spots and stuff. It'd be
Yeah,
fun.
dude, absolutely. Just let me know. Thanks, Jake. I really appreciate this.
Of course.
Thank you, Jake. It's great getting to chat with you, man. And I love when I meet and make new friends in the course of doing this podcast. This was definitely an example of that. So, folks, check out Jake's links in the description. Everything that he does is there. He's a very funny guy. If he's coming to your city, producers, have him on your show. I find him to be a delight. I look forward to talking some more punk rock with him in the very immediate future. Folks, thank you for being here. That is our show for today. If you enjoyed this podcast and think you know a friend who would be interested in it as well, you guys are my best support for helping grow the show, and I really appreciate it. You can send them to awesomedisaster.com. That has links to everywhere you can get the podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. We are on your podcast app of choice. If you want to give us a rating and a follow on your preferred platform, that would help immensely in terms of growing the show. We're also on YouTube. You can subscribe to me on YouTube as well. Will Carey is Funny is my channel. Between Awesome and Disaster has a YouTube channel as well. And you can also follow me at Will Carey 23 on Instagram, at Comic Will Carey on TikTok. If you want to go a little bit further in support of the show, we do have a merch store as well as a Patreon, and you can find links to those at awesomedisaster.com as well. And I hope that if you have a creative project that you are excited about it and you're making plans to accomplish it, just as I am this year. Every year, I always try to make some sort of creative goal for myself. Lockdown was getting my acoustic EP recorded, and this year I think we'll bring some more music to my life. So thank you all again so much for being here, for being a part of the journey, and I'll see you next time between Awesome and Disaster. Take care, everybody.